Hello, welcome to today's tutorial. We will be making this beautiful ear warmer today, and let's get started. Before we get on to the actual project, I want to take a moment to show you the stitch that we will be using throughout. So I'm just going to chain up a few. The stitch itself, it's a variation on the half treble crochet, but I'm not too sure what its name is, so I'll just be referring to it as the half treble variation throughout this project. Right, so to start off the stitch itself, you make a half treble as normal, so you yarn over and you go through your stitch, you pick up a stitch, yarn through, sorry. You have 3 loops on your hook, you yarn over and you go through all 3. Now this alternative stitch follows on from that. So you see the stitch itself, the one that you've just made, you have 3 loops and they're referred to as legs. Now the leftmost leg, this one just here, the 3rd one, we'll be going through that one. So take your hook, go through that stitch, and now we'll be going through the next stitch along. We have 3 loops on the hook, so yarn over and pull through. So those 3 loops on the hook, you yarn over and you pull through all 3, like you would a normal half treble. So I'll show you that again. So in this next stitch, we got the 3 legs of that stitch, and this one here, just here, is the one we'll be going through. I hope you can see that. Right, so put your hook through that leg, and then we go into the next stitch, and then we yarn over, we pull through, we have 3 loops on the hook, we yarn over and we pull through all 3 loops. So it is very similar to how you would normally do a half treble, except instead of yarning over and going through the next stitch, you're simply going through that 3rd leg, the next stitch, yarning over and going through. You got 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, and you go through all 3, and you continue on like that. So I hope that's clear. So every time you start the row, you start off with a half treble crochet as you normally would, and then the next stitch along is when we start the variation. So I'll show you that again. So go through that leg, go through that stitch, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, and you go through all 3. So when you go on to the next row, remember that the first stitch has to be a normal half treble, and then the second stitch is your variation. So once again, you go through that leg, you go through the next stitch, you pick up the yarn and pull through, you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, and that is how the stitch will go throughout this entirety of the project. Now I've chosen this particular stitch because it's very, very dense and it's absolutely perfect for the ear warmer. So let's get on with the project itself. So I've chosen some scrap yarn from my stash, and this is DK, and I've decided to double it up to create a sort of chunky yarn to use with my 8mm. Now For the size of your head, please refer to the chart itself, but remember it's just a reference guide, so do measure your head. And you can choose the thickness of your ear warmer. For example, you could have it nice and thick, so it goes over your ears and fits really snugly, kind of almost like a hat, or you could have it as thin as perhaps a headband. Now I'm going for sort of an in-between, so it's not too thick, not too thin. So I will be chaining up 12, so that's 1, 2, 3, 11, 12. And we'll be chaining up an extra 2. Right, so as I showed you with the half treble variation, so we start off as normal. So we'll go into the second chain from the hook with a normal half treble crochet. And now, this is the reason why I chose to show you with a different yarn, because it'd be next to impossible teaching you how to do that stitch with the amount of yarn I'm using here, with the fact that I'm using 2 strands. But if you can see that third leg just there, and we're going to go through and then into the next stitch. So that's 3 loops on the hook, we're yarning over and going through, and then again 3 loops on the hook, yarning over and going through all 3. And we'll be doing that all the way across the row. So once again, go through that leg, go into that stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and go through all 3 loops. Once again, go through the leg of that stitch into the next stitch along, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. And it's just this stitch all the way along. I will leave you to do that and get to the end of this row, and I shall join you for the next row. Okay, I'm at the end of this row. Just gonna complete my stitch. Now we're going to chain up 2. We're going to turn our work, and once again we're going to start off with a normal half treble in this very first stitch here. And then go into the half treble variation from there. So under this leg, into the next stitch, pull through, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through all 3 and continue that way until the end of this row, and I shall see you in one moment. Okay, we're coming to the end of row 2. And you will repeat that row throughout and keep measuring your head. And I will see you for the very last part of this. I don't think I need to go over the rows with you too much because it is the same stitch throughout. So you start the row with a half treble and then you continue on with the half treble variation throughout, and I'll see you when the ear warmer is complete. So now you've completed your rows. I have about 45 rows of this half treble variation, and let's measure it. So this is 48 centimeters long, which is absolutely perfect. And what we're going to do to sew it together is we're going to use this particular method. I'm sure you've seen it plenty of times before because it's a very popular method. So basically you hold both ends like the letter C and you sort of put them together to create an S shape. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew all of the ends together right on the tips, just here. Just sew all the way across there. You don't have to be particularly tidy about it, so don't worry too much if your sewing is a little bit rough, because this is the inside of your earwarmer anyway. So I'm going to use the whip stitch. You can sew yours any way you want, but I find the whip stitch is nice and simple, very, very easy. And as I say, you don't have to be absolutely spot on perfect with your sewing here, just as long as it's just all sewn together really, really nice and tightly. So I'm going to go through every single stitch right here. All the way along, making sure to go through the tops of every single one of these. Right, what we're gonna do here is loop through to tie it off with a knot. Do that a few times just to secure it. Put your tail through a few times to hide it. Making sure to catch the stitches nicely. And once you're happy with how hidden your tail is, then just trim your ends. Sort out any other ends you have. And there we have it. That's one complete earwarmer. This particular one does not take very long to make. As I say, the half treble variation is very, very quick to make up, especially when you're using chunky or several yarns together, which I have done, and basically gotten rid of quite a large majority of my yarn stash, and just mixing up the colours just to make it look rather pretty. And that's it. That's our earwarmers. Now, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please do like the video, and if you haven't already, I would absolutely love it if you were to subscribe to my channel. I have a few more tutorials on the channel already and a few more to come out. I'm going to be doing some vlogs soon. I've also decided it'd be fun to maybe do like a learn with me series where I learn how to do a particular stitch or a particular yarn craft that I've never done before, and you basically learn along with me. I'll also be doing a beginner series, so if you're an absolute beginner to crochet, please do join me for that. And aside from that, thank you very, very much for joining me for this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed it and learnt a brand new stitch, and you have yourself a nice ear warmer to keep you nice and warm through this very, very bitterly cold winter. And with that, I say goodbye.